The place we arrived at was a normal house. There was a small torii gate on the side and stone steps led further inside. We were directed to the house, and while the inn owner rang the doorbell and waited, he told us, "Only answer the questions you're asked, alright?" He added, "Don't say anything strange, okay?" After a short wait, a woman from the house came out. She appeared to be in her 20s, but seemed like an ordinary person. But what stood out was a large mole right in the middle of her forehead. She led us inside, and we were guided to a tatami room in one corner of the house. Inside there was a priest, a man, and an old man sitting. As soon as we entered the room, the man muttered, "How ominous." The inn owner said, "Sit down." At the inn owner's signal, we sat down in a row opposite of the priest. The inn owner took a seat next to them. The old man spoke. "Are these three all of them?" The inn owner responded, "Yes, that's right. This person, B, can already see them." As soon as the inn owner said this, the man and the old man exchanged glances. Then the priest spoke. "Was it him who went upstairs?" The inn owner replied, "No, actually Tetsuhiro went upstairs." The priest nodded, and they asked B, "Are you experiencing something like this for the first time?" B asked in return. "Something like this?" The priest clarified. "Yes, experiencing things like seeing spirits." B hesitated for a moment and replied, Yes." The priest continued, "I see. Unusual things can happen." B seemed to want to say something else, and everyone in the room turned their attention to him. "Hey, priest," the priest prompted. "Yes." B finally asked, "Am I going to die?" B's arm resting on his knees in the formal sitting position trembled uncontrollably as he asked. The room fell into silence. The priest answered softly, "Yes, you are. If things continue as they are, die." The priest said, "I mean being taken away." Even after this explanation, we were still confused. What did he mean by being taken away? The priest continued, "It's natural that you don't understand. When you went to the second floor, did you feel anything strange?" I replied, "I heard sounds. Also, there was some weird breathing. There were a lot of testimonies on the second floor door." The priest said, "I see. You might not have realized it, but there are beings up there that aren't human." I wasn't very surprised because I had already suspected as much. The priest explained further, "Most likely, you sense the presence of those non-human entities with your ears. They are something that normal people can't perceive. They exist quietly and noticed by anyone." With that said, the priest slowly stood up and asked B, "B, can you see them now?" B replied, "No, but I hear noises, like scratching on the walls." The priest explained, "It can't enter here. We've placed multiple layers of barriers. It is desperately trying to break through those barriers." The priest continued, "However, we can't stay here forever. We're gonna leave now and head to a hole. B, once you leave this place, those entities will appear in front of you again." The priest reassured B, saying, "You might go through more hardships from now, but we will definitely help you. Stay strong and come with us, okay?" B nodded, his head trembling. With the priest leading the way, we left the house path through the adjacent torii gate and climbed the stone steps. The inn owner accompanied us until we left the house, but after a brief conversation with the man, he bowed to the priest and left. Feeling increasingly alone without anyone we knew, the three of us walked closely together, especially B, who walked hunched over, constantly looking from side to side, clearly looking utterly drained. So we walked with B sandwiched in the middle as much as possible to protect him. By the time we finished climbing the stone steps, a large temple came into view. However, the priest didn't head there. Instead, he led us to the right of the temple and deeper inside. There, another torii gate stood, and more stone steps continued. Before passing through the gate, the priest asked B, how are you feeling now? B replied, it is standing there on 2 legs. It's been following us this way and looking at me the whole time. The priest said, I see. It's already standing there. It must have been relieved and happy that you noticed it. We don't have much time. We need to hurry. After we finished climbing the stone steps, there was a significantly smaller shack compared to the previous temple. The priest went around to the back of the shack and called us over. There, he explained that we would spend the night here to exorcise the spirit. He emphasized that there would be no light inside, and we were not allowed to speak until dawn. Of course, no mobile phones are allowed either. Anything that emits light is prohibited. You won't eat or sleep here, he said. In case we really needed to relieve ourselves, he handed us a strange cloth bag. I couldn't believe my eyes. A cloth bag? But the priest explained that it was designed not to leak any liquids from the inside. It was hard to believe, but there was no point in questioning it, so I just accepted it. Afterwards, the priest gave us water from a bamboo-like tube, took a sip himself, and then sprayed us with it. He instructed us to enter the small shack. We took turns entering, but when B entered, he suddenly covered his mouth and rushed back out and vomited. We were all surprised by this sudden turn of events. And the priest asked in a hurried tone, You didn't go to the 2nd floor today, did you? I replied, Huh? We did go there yesterday. The priest said, This is strange. Even though it's temporary, I purified yourselves. It's odd that you can't enter the hole. We didn't really understand what he meant. Then the priest's attention shifted B's hip back, and he asked, While staying there, did any of you receive something from someone? I couldn't think of anything, but A mentioned, I did receive my salary today. It was so ordinary that I had forgotten about it. It was amusing how impressed I had been about receiving my salary. I added, Oh, and I also got a small pouch. A said, and I got some rice balls, if it's about receiving something. I remember the small pouch Makiko gave me when I received my salary. In the morning, Misaki had made rice balls for us. The priest heard this and turned to B, asking, B, do you have any of those items with you right now? B replied, I have the rice balls. They're in the beer bag, but I have my salary and the pouch with me right now. B said this and took out the 2 items from his bag. The priest first opened the pouch and then said, Oh my, this is... As he widened the bag's opening to show us. As we peered inside, we all gasped. Inside the bag were numerous fragments of human nails, the same kind that had been stuck to my feet when I had gone to the 2nd floor the previous night. They were familiar, with a red and a blackened appearance. B immediately vomited again, and I followed swift. The surroundings were filled with a foul odor of vomit, and even the priest had a contorted expression on his face. The priest instructed B to surrender all of his belongings, and both of us were told to do the same. I handed my cell phone and wallet to the priest, and I asked him to dispose of the pouch inside my travel bag. The priest nodded, gave B another sip of water from the bamboo tube, and then, when the 3 of us entered the hole, the priest said, You must not open this door. We're gonna wait for you at the main hall.
No one will come here until tomorrow morning.
The priest continued.
Furthermore, you must not converse with whatever is beyond this wall. You must not speak within this hall either. You must not disclose your location,
he emphasized.
Please, I implore you to abide by these rules.
After scrutinizing our faces, he closed the door without saying another word. Inside of the hole, it was chilly. I wondered how we would endure a night without food or water. But I thought we could manage for at least one night. The building itself was quite old, with small gaps in the walls, although they were not substantial. As it was still daytime, light seeped in through these gaps, allowing us to see each other's faces clearly. Despite the inability to speak, we communicated through nods and gestures, sharing our anxiety and reassurance. After a while, we exchanged a few glances and eventually turned in different directions. The frustration of wanting to talk, but being unable to, was overwhelming. We had no idea how much time remained, and although it felt like an eternity had passed, it was still bright outside. Suddenly, it began to make a rustling sound. Concerned about what he was doing, I turned towards him to intervene before he made too much noise. To my surprise, he showed us a piece of paper and a pen. He had secretly concealed a pen despite the priest's instructions. The paper was wrapped in gum packaging, probably because we didn't have any actual notepads.
What the hell was he doing?
For a moment, I did think that way, but given the inability to communicate in this situation, I couldn't say anything about A's actions. Rather, it provided some sort of relief. I can't explain it well, but I distinctly remember feeling much more at ease. A began by writing something on the paper himself, and then handed it to me. It read,
"Is everyone okay?"
A then passed me the pen. I wrote, trying to keep it small and save the space.
"I'm fine for now. How about a B?"
I handed the paper and pen to B. He wrote,
"I'm okay too. I can't see or hear anything."
A received the paper and pen again. In this way, our original conversation began. There are 4 pieces of gum left. With the outer paper and foil, we have 8 pieces.
Let's write small.
Okay, let's talk now, because we might not be able to at night.
Understood. What time is it now?
I don't know.
Around 5 maybe?
We got here around 1, so it's been about 3 hours.
Then it's around 4 o'clock.
Still a long time, huh?
Yeah.
We continued with a casual conversation and finished the first piece of paper. A then wrote something new.
"Hey, wrote bigger."
I made a gesture of apology, and A handed me the pen. I wrote,
"I'm hungry,"
and passed it to B.
"Is there anything else I can assist you with?"
B said, "I will definitely follow what the priest said." I had never said words like "I don't want to die" seriously before. I had never considered death. I had never felt it so close. And now there was someone right in front of me saying it, from the depth of his heart. The fact was incredibly shocking. I looked into B's eyes and nodded. After that, we didn't say much, but strangely, there was no sense of loneliness. We felt each other's presence as we watched the day turn into night. We didn't do anything, and the cicadas were loud at first. But gradually our ears adjusted, and they became less bothersome. However, something felt off. When I focused my ears, I could hear something else. As I concentrated, the sound became clearer. I realized it was that breathing sound. I looked at B. It was dimly lit, and it was hard to see, but there was no sign that B had noticed me. Doesn't B hear it? Come to think of it, B mentioned the breathing sounds, right?
Maybe B has never heard it before? Or maybe B just hasn't noticed it yet?
Various thoughts crossed my mind.
Then B, who noticed my frozen state, started looking around nervously. In this situation, it was impossible not to be on edge. B quickly noticed my change in demeanor. B's gaze fixed on one point, straight over my shoulder. The whites of B's eyes widened considerably, and it was clear that B had opened them wide. I also noticed B's reaction and looked in the direction B was staring, but it seemed like I couldn't see anything. I was too scared to turn around. However, the breathing sound continued to enter my ears. I knew it was right there. Motionless, it just continued making the sounds like After a while being frozen, another sound started to creep in around the hole, like something being dragged. I heard the sounds, and suddenly grabbed my arm. The sound circled around the hole, and gradually the breathing sound began to be interspersed, with a strange noise like I could only hear the sounds, but I knew it was slowly wandering around the hole. I could feel A's heartbeat through his grip on my arm. I didn't have the composure to check on B. I think we were all frozen. None of us moved. I tried to block my ears and close my eyes to escape the fear. In my mind, I kept wishing, "Please, just disappear!" I have no idea how much time passed. It might have been just a few minutes, or maybe not. When I opened my eyes and looked around, the hole was pitch black, and I could hardly see anything. And the sound from earlier had disappeared. I didn't know if the wave of fear had passed or if it was still around. I couldn't tell. And then the deep darkness in front of me brought a different kind of fear. I strained my eyes, and I couldn't see anything. I couldn't even shout, "Are you there?" or "Are you okay?" I couldn't make a sound. A had been holding onto my arm the whole time, so I knew A was there. At that moment, I became extremely worried about B. B was clearly seeing something. In the darkness, I desperately searched for B, but I couldn't see anything. I repositioned the arm that A was holding onto in my left hand and slowly started walking towards the direction where B was. I tried to move silently, not startle A. It was so dark that we couldn't communicate verbally. I thought if someone panicked, it would be all over. I didn't know where B was, so with A's arm in my left hand, I extended my right hand forward and slowly moved it left and right while moving forward, trying to avoid making noise and startling A. Then my fingertips suddenly touched something solid, and my heart made a thumping sound. I realized it was a wall from the texture. Strange. I had walked in the direction where B was supposed to be, but B wasn't there. I felt anxious. I turned and followed the way slowly, but I reached another wall. I was at loss and felt like crying. I kept shouting the words, "Where's B?" over and over. I didn't know what to do, and I just stood there, tightly gripping A's arm. Then A grabbed my arm and slowly started walking again. First, when A reached the wall, it made me touch the wall with the arm I was holding. Then A slowly moved along the wall, and when we reached the corner, A changed the direction and continued along the wall. In this way, A guided me. Eventually, A stopped abruptly. Then A pulled my arm gently, and I touched something warm. It felt like the trembling touch of a person. I thought I had found B, but immediately after, a question arose. Is this really B? And similar doubt arose about A as well. A had been close by all along, but was it really A who was holding my arm? The darkness had made me paranoid. I remained silent. and A grabbed my arm again, leading me slowly. I followed cautiously. Suddenly, I noticed a faint light in my field of vision. I was wondering about it when I realized that a small amount of moonlight was entering through a gap in the room. A was trying to lead us toward that light. I couldn't understand why I hadn't noticed it before. I had heard about the eyes adjusting to darkness, but I was too consumed by fear to notice. It had been pitch black. Anyway, at that moment I felt an overwhelming sense of relief when I saw that light. I felt truly grateful to A. A said, "I couldn't see anything and couldn't hear anything. I heard some dragging noise though, but maybe because of that, I was calmer than you too." I thought A was an amazing person. When we came under the moonlight, I saw that B's arm was held in A's opposite hand. B's face, visible in the moonlight, was soaked with sweat and tears. There was no need to ask what had happened or what B had seen. The night was incredibly quiet compared to the day, with the distant chirping of crickets. We sat there for a while, feeling somewhat embarrassed, holding each other's hand in a circle. It felt like forming a circle was the most comforting arrangement. Moreover, even with just a faint glimmer of light, being able to see each other's forms there felt like entering a different dimension. After a while, what we had expected finally happened. They had to relieve themselves. It was a bodily function that couldn't be avoided. They rummaged in their pants pocket, took out the cloth bag given by the priest, and stood up, moving a little way from us. In the midst of the silence, the noise A made reverberated. It was a somewhat goofy noise, and both B and I exchanged grins. Then it happened. B. In an instant, tension ran through our bodies. We heard it again, right outside the door we had entered earlier this morning. B. We instantly recognized the voice's owner. It was Misaki, whose voice we had heard this morning. B. I made onigiri for you. Speaking as if trying to gauge our reaction, she spoke again, pausing for a moment between sentences. There is no intonation in her voice. It sounded mechanical. B's grip tightened, and then as if a switch had been flipped. B, I made onigiri for you. Welcome. I made onigiri for you, B. Welcome. I made onigiri for you. She repeated. The same words over and over again. It felt extraordinarily abnormal. I was terrified. It was Misaki's voice, but it was incredibly frightening. The priest had told us that no one would come to the hall. And this mechanical way of speaking, it couldn't be Misaki outside the door. Before I knew it, they had returned to our side and grabbed our arms. Their grip was tight, so I thought they had her too. The three of us stood there, unable to move, staring at the door to the sound chamber. During this time, the voice continued to repeat.
Welcome, B. I made onigiri for you. Welcome, B. I made onigiri for you. Welcome, B. I made onigiri for you.
And finally, the door began to rattle and shake. Wait, hold on. The person on the other side of the door intended to force it open and come in. I quickly thought about what to do if the door opened. When at full speed, the priest said they were in the main hall, so maybe we could escape there. But where was the main hall? I hadn't thought that far. I was only focused on how to escape from there. Soon, the person outside the door began to bang on it, making a loud noise while still speaking in the mechanical voice. Then they slowly started moving along the wall of the hall to the left. They would move left for a certain period, then move again. It was a repetitive return. As I wondered what it was doing, I realized something. There was a gap in the wall where we were standing, and they were slowly moving toward the gap. What if we could see inside through the gap? What if we could see their figures from the inside? Thinking about it, I couldn't stay there any longer. I quickly moved both of them to the center of the room. We were moving slowly and surely. I even hoped that our heartbeats would stop. I didn't want them to notice us, but maybe they already had. I was so terrified that my teeth started to chatter, and I bit my own finger hard. And then as I approached the gap in the wall, I saw it, their face illuminated by the moonlight, a face I had only seen through the sound until now. It was a pitch black face, with long white eyes that strangely stood out. The banging noise that I had thought was them colliding with the wall was actually the sound of them repeatedly smashing their head against it. Their face momentarily disappeared from the gap, and I assumed that they were recoiling outside. Then with a tremendous force, they slammed their heads against the wall again. I couldn't take my eyes off them. Even though my body was trembling and like sleep paralysis, maybe I was just captivated by a sight I had never seen before. As they continued to speak monotonously while forcefully banging their head against the wall, they seemed entirely detached from a living human being. In the end, I couldn't tell if they couldn't see us or if they were intentionally doing this in a spot where we couldn't be seen. After repeated hitting their head against the wall in the gap, they continued to move to the left. In my mind, the after image synchronized with the sounds and I vividly imagined them outside banging their head against something. Honestly, I have no recollection of how long they were there. I couldn't distinguish between the after image and the reality. Later, I heard that after they disappeared and everything fell silent, the three of us remained silent for a long time.